It was pouring heavily when Lily ran through the empty streets, holding a small envelope tightly in her hand. The rain soaked her coat, dripped from her hair, and blurred the world around her. But she did not care. This letter was important, more than anything she had written before. It carried words she had kept locked in her heart for months, words she now needed to deliver. Lily had met Samuel a year ago at a small cafe. He was quiet, kind, and always smiling, even on rainy days like this one. They became friends slowly, sharing small moments over coffee and long walks. Over time, her feelings had grown deeper than friendship, but fear had held her back from saying anything. She had written and rewritten this letter countless times, never sure if she was brave enough to give it to him. She arrived at Samuel's apartment building, the rain pouring harder now. The streets reflected the city lights, and the sound of water hitting the ground filled the silence between her quick breaths. She checked the envelope once more, smoothing the creases, and stepped inside the building. When she reached his door, she paused. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. What if he did not feel the same? What if the words she had poured her heart into were rejected? She took a deep breath and rang the bell. Her heart thumped loudly, echoing in her chest like the storm outside. Samuel opened the door almost immediately, his hair damp, eyes wide in surprise. "Lily?" he asked, voice gentle but filled with curiosity. She handed him the envelope, her fingers trembling. "Please, read it," she whispered. Then she turned and left before he could say anything, the rain wrapping around her like a cloak of both fear and hope. Inside his apartment, Samuel opened the letter carefully. The paper was slightly wet at the edges from her hands, but the words were clear. Lily had written about every small memory, every smile he had given her, and how she felt when she was with him. She wrote about her fears, her hopes, and the way she could not imagine life without him. Her words were honest, raw, and filled with love. He read slowly, letting each sentence sink in. The rain continued to tap against his window, a soft rhythm that mirrored his heartbeat. When he finished, he looked out at the wet streets and realized that every word was true. His heart was full, and for the first time he understood the depth of Lily's feelings. Samuel put on his coat and stepped into the rain, clutching the letter as though it contained her very soul. He needed to find her, to tell her everything he felt. He ran through the streets, rain soaking him instantly, but he barely noticed. All that mattered was finding Lily. He spotted her near the corner where the old bookstore once stood, her coat dripping, hair plastered to her face. She was looking down at the puddles, unaware of his presence. He called her name softly, but the wind and rain carried the sound away. When he finally reached her, he took both her hands gently in his. "Lily," he said, voice shaking. She looked up, surprise and worry in her eyes. "I read your letter," he continued, holding it between them. I feel the same. I was just too afraid to say it." Her eyes filled with tears, and she laughed softly, the sound blending with the rhythm of the rain. They stood there together, rain soaking them both, yet neither cared. The world around them disappeared. In that moment, nothing mattered but the truth they had shared. Samuel brushed a strand of wet hair from her face and kissed her forehead gently. Lily smiled, relief washing over her like the storm around them. Over the next weeks, the letter became a treasured memory. They framed it together, carefully preserving it behind glass. It reminded them of courage, of honesty, and of the power of speaking your heart, no matter how scared you are. They spent rainy days together, often walking the same streets where she had delivered the letter. Each drop of rain felt like a promise, a reminder of how their hearts had finally found each other. Their friendship had turned into something stronger, more honest, and filled with love they both had hidden for so long. Lily realized that fear is often the only barrier between two hearts meant to be together. She no longer hesitated to speak her feelings, and Samuel learned that true love requires both courage and patience. One rainy evening, they sat by the window of the cafe where they first met. The rain tapped softly against the glass, and they held hands, reading the letter aloud once more. It was no longer a letter of fear. It was a letter of love, bravery, and beginnings. They knew that every storm had brought them closer, and that every drop of rain had carried their hearts toward each other. From that day forward, whenever it rained, Lily and Samuel smiled at each other, remembering the night a simple letter changed everything. The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets sparkling under the soft morning light. Puddles reflected the sky, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. Lily walked slowly toward the cafe, the memory of last night still fresh in her mind. Every drop of rain seemed to carry the weight of their shared emotions, the courage it had taken to finally speak the truth. She felt lighter somehow, as if the storm had washed away the fear that had lingered in her heart for so long. Samuel was already waiting, seated at their usual table by the window. His coat was still damp, and a small smile played on his lips as he saw her approaching. He had not slept well, not because of worry, but because he had been thinking about her letter all night. Each sentence had echoed in his mind, reminding him of how much he cared for her. They spent the morning talking about everything and nothing. They laughed over little memories they had shared, and at times silence took over, comfortable and full of understanding. It was in those silences that they felt closest, as if no words were needed when two hearts finally recognized each other. Over the following weeks, they continued to explore their newfound closeness. They visited old bookstores, walked in quiet parks, and even shared a small apartment that overlooked the river. Rainy days became special moments, times when they would stay close, reading books together or sharing stories while listening to the sound of raindrops on the windows. Every storm reminded them of that pivotal night when honesty had transformed their lives. Lily also noticed how much she had changed. She no longer held her feelings inside, afraid of rejection. Speaking her heart had brought unexpected courage and a deeper connection to life itself. Samuel, too, discovered the value of patience and empathy. He had always been kind, but now he learned to listen even more carefully, to understand the unspoken emotions hidden behind her smiles and quiet gestures. Months later, on a particularly heavy rainy day, they returned to the street where it all began. They paused beneath the same streetlight, now familiar and comforting, and exchanged letters they had written to each other over time. These letters were no longer filled with fear, but with love, hope, and promises of the future. The streets, once lonely and cold, now reflected their warmth. In that simple act, they realized that life often gives second chances. Every fear faced, every truth spoken can create moments of connection that last a lifetime. The rain, once a symbol of hesitation and worry, had become a reminder of courage, love, and the beauty of hearts finding each other. From that day forward, whenever rain fell, they smiled at each other, remembering how a single letter had changed their lives forever. It was not just a letter in the rain, it was the beginning of everything beautiful they would share together.